The stage lights blurred through my tears as I stood alone in the empty auditorium, my phone screen illuminating a text message that had arrived 30 minutes too late. Sorry, sweetie, Madison's championship game went into overtime. We'll catch your next one. There would be no next one. I gripped the microphone stand harder, my knuckles white against the metal. The judges had already left. The other contestants had performed to packed audiences, proud parents filming every note, bouquets of roses waiting in the wings. I had sung my heart out to 3 people, my voice teacher, Mrs. Chen, the janitor, and a freshman who'd wandered in looking for the bathroom. This wasn't just any recital. This was the Regional Youth Vocal Competition Finals, the competition I'd been preparing for since I was 14. The one that could have earned me a full scholarship to Juilliard, the one I'd mentioned at dinner every single night for 6 months. But Madison had a volleyball game. My little sister always had a game, or a practice, or a team dinner, or a college scout watching, and somehow, every single time, my family forgot about me. I walked out of that auditorium knowing something they didn't know yet. I wouldn't survive the week. The drunk driver who would run the red light in 4 days didn't care about vocal competitions or volleyball games. He didn't care that I was only 17, or that I'd never gotten to hear whether I'd placed in the competition. He didn't care that my last memory of my family would be watching them pile into the SUV without me, Madison's volleyball bag taking up the seat where I should have been. But here's what they didn't know. I would get a second chance. And this time, I would never sing for them again. The morning I woke up as my 12-year-old self, I thought I was in hell. I recognized my childhood bedroom immediately, the pale purple walls I'd begged to repaint at 15, the collection of participation trophies from elementary school that I'd later throw away in a fit of bitter rage. The poster of Sarah Brightman that had inspired me to start voice lessons in the first place. My hands were smaller, my hair was longer. I'd kept it in a long braid before cutting it short at 16. And when I stumbled to the mirror, I saw a face I hadn't seen in years, round with baby fat, braces still on my teeth, eyes that hadn't yet learned what it felt like to be invisible in your own family. I was 12 again. The memories of my death were visceral and immediate, the screech of tires, the shattering of glass, the strange floating sensation of leaving my body and watching paramedics work frantically over my broken form, and then nothing, and then this. I sat on my bed, hyperventilating, trying to process the impossible reality. I had died at 17. I had lived an entire 5 years that now stretched ahead of me again. I knew everything that would happen, every disappointment, every forgotten recital, and missed awards ceremony. Every time I would come home excited to share good news, only to find my parents focused entirely on Madison's latest achievement. Madison, my little sister who wasn't even born yet in this timeline. No, wait. I heard a cry from down the hall. Mom was pregnant right now. Madison would be born in 2 months. The enormity of my situation crashed over me. I could change everything. I could prevent every moment of pain, every instance of neglect. I could make them see me this time. Or, and this thought came to me with crystal clarity, I could protect myself. I could build a life they couldn't touch. I could save myself the years of heartbreak. I could let them forget me on purpose. The next 5 years were a masterclass in strategic invisibility. I started small. When Mom asked if I wanted to join the church children's choir, I said no. When my elementary school music teacher suggested I audition for the district honor choir, I declined. I never sang in the house where anyone could hear me. I hummed sometimes quietly, but never performed. Don't you want to take voice lessons? Mom asked me once when I was 13, the same age I'd started in my previous life. Mrs. Chen says you have a beautiful voice from when she heard you in music class. Not really interested, I said, my heart breaking even as I lied. I think I want to focus on my studies. Mom looked relieved. I understood why now, with the clarity of hindsight. Voice lessons were expensive, competition dresses were expensive, travel to competitions was expensive, Madison's club volleyball, which she'd joined at age 10, would become a money drain that consumed every spare dollar. In my first life, my parents had paid for my voice lessons, but resented every penny. I'd heard Mom on the phone with her sister. I just don't understand why she can't be happy with the school choir. Madison's volleyball is actually going somewhere. Colleges scout for volleyball players. This time, I saved them the trouble of resenting me. But I didn't give up singing. I couldn't. It was as essential to me as breathing. Instead, I became a ghost. I trained myself in secret. YouTube became my teacher. I spent hours watching master classes from famous vocal coaches, studying technique videos, analyzing performances by opera singers and Broadway stars. I practiced in the woods behind our house where no one could hear me. I practiced in my car once I got my license. I practiced in the shower with the water running. I recorded myself constantly, critiquing every breath, every phrase, every resonance issue. Without the emotional burden of performing for my family, without the constant disappointment of their absence, I improved faster than I ever had in my first life. I also made sure to cultivate the one relationship that would matter, Mrs. Chen. In my first life, she'd been my voice teacher from 14 to 17. She'd been at my final recital, one of 3 people in the audience. She'd cried when I finished my aria, and I'd always wondered if she somehow knew it would be the last time. This time, I approached her differently. I stayed after school one day in 8th grade and knocked on her classroom door. "Miss Morrison," she said, surprised, "what can I do for you?" "I need your help," I said, "but I need you to keep it secret." Mrs. Chen was younger than I remembered, only 32, not yet the weathered woman in her 40s who would watch me die. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her eyes were sharp with curiosity. "Secret from whom?" "My family." I saw the concern flash across her face. "Is everything all right at home? Are you in danger?" "No, nothing like that," I assured her. "My family isn't abusive. They don't see me. And I've realized I don't want them to, but I still want to sing. I need to sing. I just need to do it somewhere they'll never know." It was the truth, if not the whole truth. Mrs. Chen studied me for a long moment. "That's an unusual request." "I know, but I'm serious about this. More serious than anyone else you'll ever teach." The weight of my past life, my death, my rebirth, my 5 years of memories infused every word. She must have heard something in my voice because her expression shifted. "All right," she said slowly. "Let's hear you sing." I sang "Think of Me" from Phantom of the Opera. It was the same song I'd performed at my final recital, the one my family had missed. But this time, at 13, my voice was younger and less trained. Still, 5 years of muscle memory from my previous life meant my technique was far beyond what it should have been. When I finished, Mrs. Chen was staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "How long have you been training?" she asked quietly. "A lifetime," I said. It wasn't even a lie. Mrs. Chen became my co-conspirator. We worked out an arrangement. I would come to her classroom every day after school, ostensibly for homework help or extra credit. In reality, I was getting professional voice training 5 days a week. She charged me nothing at first. "Consider it an investment," she said. "You're going to be something special, Elena. I can feel it." She had no idea how right she was. By 14, I was performing at a level that should have taken years to achieve. My technique was flawless. My musicality was sophisticated beyond my years, and my emotional depth, shaped by death and rebirth, brought a haunting quality to everything I sang. "Where does this come from?" Mrs. Chen asked me once after I'd finished a particularly devastating rendition of Vici d'arte from Tosca. "This pain. You're too young to understand these emotions, but you feel them." "Everyone has pain, Mrs. Chen," I said quietly. "Mine just looks different than most people's." I started entering competitions under a pseudonym. Elena Morrison became Elena Marquez for performance purposes. Mrs. Chen helped me register, attended as my aunt, and we told no one at home. I won my first competition at 14, then another at 15. By 16, I had a reputation in regional opera circles as a mysterious young soprano who appeared out of nowhere and dominated every competition she entered. The scholarship offers started coming. Juilliard, Curtis Institute, Manhattan School of Music. Every prestigious music conservatory in the country wanted me, and my family had no idea. At home, I was the invisible daughter. Madison's volleyball career had exploded exactly as I remembered. She was a natural athlete, tall, coordinated, aggressive at the net. By 13, she was playing for an elite club team that traveled to tournaments every weekend. My parents' lives revolved around her schedule. Dad took on extra overtime to pay for her club fees, tournament travel, and private coaching. Mom quit her part-time job to drive Madison to practices and games. I watched it all with a strange detachment. In my first life, this had destroyed me. I'd begged for their attention, tried to make them care about my music the way they cared about Madison's volleyball. I'd convinced myself that if I just worked harder, sang better, won bigger competitions, they would finally see me. They never had. This time, I didn't try. I kept my grades up, straight A's, honor roll, nothing that would cause concern or warrant a parent-teacher conference. I had a part-time job at a local bookstore to pay for my own expenses. I was polite at dinner, asked appropriately interested questions about Madison's games, and never once mentioned my singing. "You're so easy," Mom said to me once when I was 15. She was stressed about Madison's tournament schedule and Dad's work conflicts. "I never have to worry about you. You just handle everything yourself." "Thanks, Mom," I said blandly. I thought I was easy because I'd learned to expect nothing. I'd learned that the only person I could rely on was myself. But she didn't need to know that. Madison, for her part, treated me like furniture. She wasn't cruel, she simply didn't think about me at all. I was the older sister who existed in the background, who didn't cause problems, who occasionally drove her to practice when Mom was busy. "Can you take me to the mall on Saturday?" she asked me once when she was 14 and I was 17. "Mom has to work and I need new shoes for the tournament." "I have plans," I said. She looked genuinely shocked. "Plans? What plans?" "I have a life, Madison." "Doing what? You never do anything." I smiled. Exactly. The truth was, I had a competition that Saturday. A national-level vocal competition in Boston with a $50,000 scholarship prize and guaranteed auditions with major opera companies. Mrs. Chen and I were driving up Friday night. Madison would never know. None of them would. The moment everything changed came 2 months before my 17th birthday. I was in the kitchen making dinner, another invisible task I'd taken on to keep the household running, when Madison came home from practice crying. "What's wrong?" Mom asked immediately, dropping everything to comfort her. "Coach says I'm not going to make the starting lineup for nationals," Madison sobbed. "She says my blocking needs work and Jenny is better right now." Mom pulled her into a hug. "Oh, sweetheart, that's not fair. You've worked so hard." "I've done everything she asked. I go to all the extra practices. I work with the trainer. I've improved so much." Dad came in from the garage. "What's going on?" "Madison's coach is benching her for nationals," Mom explained, her voice tight with anger. "That's bullshit," Dad said. "We spent thousands of dollars on this club. We've driven her to tournaments in 5 different states. And they're going to bench her?" "Maybe she just needs to work harder on her blocking," I said quietly, not looking up from the pasta I was stirring. 3 heads swiveled toward me. "What did you say?" Madison asked, her voice dangerous. "I said maybe you need to work harder. If the coach says Jenny is better, maybe Jenny is better." The silence that followed was arctic. "That's incredibly unsupportive," Mom said coldly. "Your sister is going through something difficult and that's your response?" "I'm just being realistic. Not everyone can be the best at everything." "When have you ever even tried to be the best at anything?" Madison snapped. "You just coast through life doing nothing. You have no idea what it's like to work for something and fail." I turned off the stove and finally looked at her. Really looked at her. My little sister who had consumed every resource, every ounce of attention, every family moment for the past 5 years. Who had never once asked me about my life, my dreams, my interests. "You're right," I said. "I wouldn't know anything about failing at something I've worked for." "Exactly," Madison said triumphantly, missing the sarcasm entirely. "Elena, apologize to your sister," Dad said firmly. "For what? Telling the truth?" "For being cruel when she needs support." I looked at the 3 of them, my mother, father, and sister, all unified in their outrage at my single moment of honesty. And I felt nothing. No hurt, no anger, just a distant, clinical observation. These people would never see me, not in this life or any other. I'm sorry, Madison, I said flatly. I hope you make the starting lineup. I walked out of the kitchen and went to my room. Behind me, I heard Mom say, "She's been so moody lately. I don't know what's gotten into her." 2 weeks later, they forgot my 17th birthday. Not maliciously. They simply didn't remember. There was no cake, no presents, no happy birthday at breakfast. Madison had a tournament that weekend, and they were all focused on preparation. I drove myself to school, went to my classes, and at the end of the day, Mrs. Chen handed me a cupcake with a single candle. "Happy birthday, Elena," she said softly. "I'm proud of you." I burst into tears, not because my family had forgotten, I'd expected that, but because Mrs. Chen had remembered. Because in my entire second life, she was the only person who truly saw me. "I got the Juilliard offer," I told her through my tears. "Full scholarship. They want me to start in the fall." Mrs. Chen hugged me tight. "Of course they do. You're extraordinary." "They don't know," I said. "My family, they don't know about any of it, and I'm not going to tell them." "Not even when you leave?" "I'll tell them I got a scholarship to a college in New York. I just won't mention which one or what for." Mrs. Chen pulled back, studying my face. "Why? Why keep it from them even now when you've succeeded beyond anyone's wildest dreams?" "Because they don't deserve to know," I said simply. "They forgot every recital. They missed every milestone. They made me feel invisible for years. Let them think I'm ordinary. Let them never know what they lost." "That's very cold, Elena." "Maybe, but it's also very fair." The accident that killed me in my first life never happened. I knew the exact date, the exact intersection, the exact time. On that day in my second life, I simply stayed home. I told my parents I was sick. They barely noticed. They were at Madison's tournament anyway. The drunk driver ran the red light and T-boned a different car. 2 people were seriously injured but survived. I watched the news that night with a strange sense of displacement. In another timeline, that had been me. In this one, I'd avoided my fate. Was I cheating destiny, or had my rebirth been destiny's way of giving me a second chance? I didn't know. I didn't care. I was alive, and that was what mattered. 3 months later, I graduated high school as valedictorian. My parents came to the ceremony and seemed mildly surprised when I gave the speech, and "I didn't know you were valedictorian," Mom whispered to Dad. "She must have mentioned it," Dad whispered back. "We probably just forgot." I saw Mrs. Chen in the audience, crying proud tears. She knew what this moment meant. She knew everything it represented. My speech was carefully crafted to say everything and nothing. "We're told that family is everything," I said to the crowd of graduating seniors and their families. "We're told that our parents' love and support is what enables us to succeed. And for many of you, that's true. You've had people in your corner, cheering for you, believing in you. But some of us have learned a different lesson. We've learned that the most important person in your corner is yourself. We've learned that we are capable of more than anyone expects, especially when no one is watching. We've learned that being overlooked can be its own kind of freedom." So, to my fellow graduates who feel invisible, who feel forgotten, who feel like no one truly sees them, I see you, and I promise you, your time is coming. The world is so much bigger than this town, than these people, than anyone who made you feel small. Go out there and become everything you were meant to be, and never, ever look back. The applause was thunderous. My parents looked confused. "Was that about them?" Madison asked later. "The invisible people?" "I guess so," I said. "That's sad. I'm so glad we've always been there for you." I just smiled. I moved to New York in August with 2 suitcases, a laptop, and a bank account padded with competition winnings my family didn't know existed. "I got a scholarship to a school in New York," I told them at dinner 2 weeks before I left. "I'll be studying there in the fall." "That's wonderful, honey," Mom said, distracted. She was on her phone, texting with Madison's club coach about fall tournament schedules. "Which school?" Dad asked. "A music conservatory." Music? He frowned. I didn't know you were interested in music. I sing. Since when? A while. Madison barely looked up from her own phone. Cool, can you still drive me to practice on Wednesdays? I'll be in New York, Madison. Oh, right. Well, can you do it until you leave? Sure. That was the extent of their interest in my future. No questions about which conservatory, what I would study, whether I was nervous or excited. No offers to help me move or shop for dorm supplies. Mrs. Chen, on the other hand, insisted on driving me to New York herself. I want to see you settled, she said, and I want to meet your teachers. They should know what a privilege it is to work with you. We drove across the country with a U-Haul trailer full of my belongings, not that I had much. In the car, I sang for her, all the songs I'd perfected in secret, all the arias and art songs and musical theater pieces that my family had never heard. You know what breaks my heart? Ms. Chen said as we crossed into Pennsylvania. It's not that they didn't support you, it's that they never got to experience this. They never got to sit in an audience and watch you bring people to tears with your voice. They never got to feel proud of you. That was their choice, I said. Was it, or did you make it for them? I looked out the window at the passing landscape. Does it matter? The result is the same. I suppose it is, but, Elena, don't let your hurt make you cruel. Don't let your resentment poison your gift. You're not singing to punish them. You're singing because you love it. Because you can't not sing. Remember that. I will. But I also remembered every forgotten recital, every missed competition, every moment when I'd come home with news and been met with disinterest. I remembered dying at 17, invisible and unloved. I remembered and I did not forgive. Juilliard was everything I'd dreamed and more. I was surrounded by talented musicians who understood obsession and dedication. My teachers pushed me harder than I'd ever been pushed. My peers were competitive but respectful. They recognized that my talent was real, earned through work and discipline. I thrived. By my second year, I was being cast in major roles in the school's opera productions. By my third year, agents were approaching me about representation. By my fourth year, I had contracts with 2 major opera houses for roles after graduation. I called home dutifully once a month. The conversations were always the same. How's school? Mom would ask. Good, busy. That's nice. Let me tell you about Madison's latest tournament. And she would launch into detailed descriptions of Madison's volleyball achievements. Madison was being recruited by Division I colleges now. Full-ride scholarship offers were coming in. She was being scouted by Olympic development programs. That's great, I would say at appropriate intervals. How's your music thing going? Dad would ask sometimes as an afterthought. Fine. Still enjoying it? Yes. Good, good. Well, we should let you go. I'm sure you have studying to do. They never asked what I was studying. They never asked what I was singing. They never asked if I was performing anywhere they could attend. And I never told them. The beginning of the end came during my senior year at Juilliard. I was cast as Mimi in La Bohème, one of the most coveted soprano roles in opera. It was Juilliard's major spring production held at the Peter J. Sharp Theater with a full orchestra and professional-level production values. The New York Times would be there. Opera News would be there. Scouts from major opera companies around the world would be there. It was, quite literally, the role that could launch my career. I didn't invite my family, but someone else did. Mrs. Chen had stayed in touch with me throughout college. She'd visited New York several times to watch me perform in smaller productions. She'd become more than a teacher. She'd become the mother figure I'd never really had, and she'd kept in touch with my parents. I didn't know this until 2 weeks before opening night when I got a call from Mom. Elena, why didn't you tell us you were in an opera? My blood ran cold. Hun, how did you know? Mrs. Chen called. She said you're starring in some major production at your school. She said it's a really big deal. I was going to kill Mrs. Chen. It's just a school show, Mom. That's not what she said. She said there will be professional scouts there. She said this could launch your career. Elena, why wouldn't you tell us something this important? Because you've never cared before, I thought. Because you forgot every recital I ever had. Because you don't deserve to be there for my triumph when you were never there for my struggle. I didn't think you'd be interested, I said carefully. Not interested? Elena, you're our daughter. Of course we're interested. We're coming to New York for your show. You don't have to do that. Don't be ridiculous. Send us the details. We'll get a hotel, make a weekend of it. Madison can miss one tournament. This is more important. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her that it was 6 years too late for them to suddenly care. That she didn't get to show up now and play proud parent when she'd missed every meaningful moment of my musical journey. But I didn't. I just said, fine, I'll send you the information. I hung up and immediately called Ms. Chen. How could you? I demanded. You had no right to tell them. Elena, I know you're angry, but angry? I'm furious. You know what they did to me. You know why I kept this from them. And you betrayed me. I didn't betray you. I'm trying to save you from a bitterness that will eat you alive. Mrs. Chen's voice was firm. You've accomplished something extraordinary. You've become one of the most promising young sopranos in the country entirely on your own. That's your victory. Nothing they do or don't do can take that away from you. But if you don't let them be part of this moment, you'll regret it. Not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to be the bigger person. You deserve to show them what they missed. You deserve to let them feel the full weight of their neglect when they see what you've become. I don't want them there. Yes, you do. You want them to see, you want them to know, you want them to understand exactly what they overlooked. And Elena, this is your chance to show them. She was right, damn her. She was absolutely right. The night of the opening performance, I was a wreck. I'd performed in dozens of competitions and productions, but this felt different. My family was in the audience. After 6 years of deliberately hiding my talent, I was about to reveal everything. I applied my stage makeup with shaking hands. My castmates noticed. You okay? Asked David, who was playing Rodolfo opposite my Mimi. You seem nervous. My family is here, I said. That's great. First time seeing you perform? In this life, yes. He gave me a strange look but didn't push. Mrs. Chen found me backstage before places were called. They're here, she said, in 5th row center. I made sure they had good seats. Did they say anything? Your mother seems excited. Your father looks confused about why he's at an opera. Madison is on her phone. I laughed bitterly. Of course she is. Elena. Mrs. Chen took my hands. Forget they're out there. Sing for yourself. Sing for Mimi. Sing for every forgotten girl who was told she didn't matter. But don't sing for revenge. Sing for love. That's what Mimi is about. Love that transcends poverty, illness, even death. I died once, I said quietly. Did I ever tell you that? In another life, I died at 17. I never got to sing Mimi. I never got to have any of this. Mrs. Chen's eyes had widened. Elena. This is my second chance. And I won't waste a single moment of it worrying about people who never saw me the first time around. I kissed her cheek and headed for the stage. The lights came up on Act 1, and I became Mimi. For those who don't know the opera, La Bohème tells the story of a group of struggling artists in Paris and the doomed love between the poet Rodolfo and the seamstress Mimi. It's beautiful and tragic and utterly heartbreaking. Mimi's entrance comes midway through Act 1. She knocks on Rodolfo's door, her candle blown out, asking for a light. It's a simple moment that becomes the catalyst for their entire romance. When I sang Mi chiamano Mimi, they call me Mimi, I poured everything into it. All my loneliness, all my years of being invisible, all my desperate need to be seen, to be known, asan, to matter to someone. The aria is Mimi introducing herself, telling Rodolfo who she is. It's tender and vulnerable and achingly beautiful. And as I sang it, I wasn't singing to David's Rodolfo, I was singing to the audience. I was singing to my family. This is who I am. This is what you never knew. The audience was utterly silent. I could feel their attention like a physical presence, every person in that theater hanging on every note. When the act ended, the applause was thunderous. Act 2 flew by in a blur of colorful staging and ensemble work. Act 3 was where Mimi's tragedy deepened. Her poverty, her illness, her awareness that she was dying. And Act 4 was where I destroyed them. Mimi returns to Rodolfo, gravely ill, for one final reunion with the man she loves. She dies in his arms as he finally realizes the depth of his feelings. It's one of the most devastating death scenes in all of opera. I gave everything to that scene, every ounce of emotion I'd accumulated over 2 lifetimes. The pain of being forgotten, the agony of dying unloved, the bittersweet joy of a second chance, the complex grief of watching people who should have loved me better fail over and over again. When Mimi breathed her last and the final notes faded, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. The standing ovation lasted 7 minutes. I met my family in the lobby after the show, still in my costume and stage makeup. Mom was crying. Dad looked stunned. Even Madison had put her phone away. Elena, Mom breathed. I had no idea. How did we not know you could do that? I've been doing it for 6 years, I said calmly. You just never asked. But how? Well, when did you learn? When did you practice? After school, before school, whenever you were at Madison's games. The implications of that hung in the air. You've been training this whole time? Dad asked. Seriously training for 6 years? 7, actually, since I was 12. Why didn't you tell us? Madison asked. And for the first time in our lives, she looked genuinely bewildered. Why didn't you say you were this good? I did, I said quietly. I told you I liked to sing. I told you I was interested in music. You just never bothered to listen. Mom's face crumpled. Elena, that's not fair, isn't it? I looked at each of them in turn. When was the last time any of you asked me about my life? Really asked, not just went through the motions? When was the last time you came to something that mattered to me? We're here now, Dad said weakly. Because Mrs. Chen told you to come. Not because you wanted to. That's not true, Mom protested. We've always supported you. No, I interrupted. You've always supported Madison. I've just existed in the background. Do you even know what school I go to? They exchanged glances. Juilliard, I said. The most prestigious performing arts conservatory in the world. I got a full scholarship. I've won over 30 competitions in the past 6 years. I have contracts with 2 major opera houses waiting for me after graduation. And you didn't know any of it because you never asked. The silence was deafening. Elena, I'm sorry, Mom whispered. I don't know what to say. We've been so focused on Madison's volleyball, we just assumed you were fine. You never seemed to need us. Because you taught me not to need you. You taught me that my interests didn't matter. That my achievements were secondary to Madison's. That I was only valuable when I was convenient. That's not what we meant to teach you, Dad said. And he genuinely sounded broken. But it's what I learned. A crowd of people was forming around us, critics, scouts, other audience members wanting to congratulate me. I could see the New York Times critic approaching. I have to go, I said. There are people I need to talk to, important people, people who actually care about my career. Can we see you tomorrow? Mom asked desperately. Can we take you to breakfast? Talk about all of this? I looked at her tear-stained face, at Dad's devastated expression, at Madison's confused frown, and I felt nothing. No triumph, no vindication, just a vast, echoing emptiness where my family should have been. I don't know, I said honestly. I'll call you. I turned away and let the crowd of admirers and industry professionals sweep me away. Behind me, I heard Mom crying. I didn't look back. The reviews the next morning were spectacular. A star is born, proclaimed the New York Times. Elena Morrison's Mimi is the most moving portrayal I've seen in a decade. Her voice combines technical perfection with devastating emotional truth. Mark my words, this young soprano will be one of the greatest of her generation. Opera News called me luminous and heartbreaking. Classical Voice praised my crystalline tone and mature interpretive choices. Every major publication in the city singled me out as the breakout star of the production. My phone was flooded with calls and emails, agents wanting to represent me, opera houses offering contracts, symphony orchestras requesting guest appearances. It was everything I dreamed of and worked for. My family called 17 times. I didn't answer. Mrs. Chen came to my dorm room that afternoon with Thai food and tea. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "I'm fine." "Elena." "I'm fine," I repeated. "I got what I wanted. They saw me. They know what they missed. It's over." "Is it?" I picked at my pad thai. "They want to have breakfast tomorrow. Talk about everything." "Are you going to go?" "I don't know. What's the point?" "So they can apologize? So they can promise to do better? It doesn't change the past. It doesn't give me back all those years I spent being invisible." "No," Mrs. Chen agreed, "but it might give you a future that isn't defined by your hurt." "I don't want to forgive them." "I know, but forgiveness isn't about them, Elena. It's about you. It's about deciding whether you want to carry this anger for the rest of your life or put it down." "They don't deserve forgiveness." "Probably not. But you deserve peace." I thought about that. Peace? What would that even look like? Could I have peace with parents who'd neglected me for years? With a sister who'd never seen me as anything but furniture? "They want to be a part of your life now," Mrs. Chen continued gently. "Now that they know you're successful. Now that they understand what they missed. Is that too little, too late? Maybe, but it's also something. It's more than you had before." "I don't need them." "No, you don't. You've proven that spectacularly. But maybe the question isn't whether you need them. Maybe it's whether you want them. Despite everything, despite all the hurt, do you want your family in your life?" I didn't answer. I didn't have an answer. I met them for breakfast the next morning at a cafe near campus. They all looked terrible. Mom's eyes were red and puffy. Dad looked like he hadn't slept. Even Madison seemed subdued, not glued to her phone for once. "Thank you for coming," Mom said as I sat down. "We weren't sure you would." I almost didn't. "Elena, we owe you an apology," Dad started. "More than an apology. We owe you. Years of attention and support that we never gave you. We failed you as parents." "Catastrophically," I agreed. He flinched but nodded. "Yes, catastrophically. We got so caught up in Madison's volleyball and the travel and the expenses and the stress of it all that we completely lost sight of you. We took you for granted because you were easy, independent. You didn't cause problems or demand attention, so we just forgot about you." "You were there physically," I said. "You put a roof over my head and food on the table. But emotionally, you abandoned me years ago." Mom was crying again. "I know, and I'm so, so sorry. I've been up all night thinking about all the moments we missed, all the times you must have wanted us there, and we chose Madison instead. How alone you must have felt." "I felt invisible," I said flatly, like I didn't matter. Like I was just a placeholder daughter taking up space until you could focus on the one you actually cared about." Madison made a choked sound. Is that really how you felt?" I looked at my little sister, 18 now, on the verge of starting her own college career. She looked genuinely distressed, which surprised me. "Yes," I said, "that's really how I felt. I never knew. I never thought about it. I just assumed you were fine. You always seemed so independent and together. I didn't realize you needed attention, love, parents who gave a damn about my life." "I was going to say support," Madison said quietly. "But yeah, all of that." "It's not your fault," I said, and meant it. You were just a kid. You didn't ask to be the center of everything. That was their choice. I looked at my parents. Your choice. What can we do? Dad asked desperately. How do we fix this? You can't, I said. Not really. You can't give me back those years. You can't unforget all the recitals and competitions and moments that mattered to me. You can't erase the pain of being overlooked and undervalued by the people who were supposed to love me most. So that's it? Mom asked. You're cutting us off? We never see you again? I considered that. It would be easy. It would be clean. I could walk away and build a life completely separate from them, free from the weight of their neglect. But Mrs. Chen's words echoed in my mind. Forgiveness isn't about them. It's about you. I don't know, I said honestly. I don't know what I want our relationship to look like going forward. I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I even want to try, but I know I don't want to spend the rest of my life consumed by anger and resentment. What are you saying? Dad asked. I'm saying maybe we can try, maybe, but it has to be different. You have to be different. You have to actually show up for me, not because I'm successful now, but because I'm your daughter. You have to ask about my life and actually listen to the answers. You have to treat me like I matter. You do matter, Mom said fervently. You've always mattered. We just did a terrible job of showing it. Then show it now. Show it going forward. Prove to me that you actually want to be in my life for the right reasons. We will, Dad promised. Whatever it takes. We'll be there. We'll do better. And if you don't, I said quietly, if you slip back into old patterns and forget about me again, I'm gone. For good. No second chances, no guilt trips. I'll walk away and never look back. Understood? They all nodded. Understood, Mom whispered. The next 3 years were complicated. My parents tried. I had to give them that. They really, genuinely tried. They came to every performance they could manage. They asked about my career. They called regularly to check in. They made an effort to be present and engaged in my life. But there was an awkwardness to it all, a sense that we were strangers trying to build a relationship from scratch rather than family reconnecting. Too much time had passed. Too much damage had been done. Madison and I developed a strange friendship. She was at USC on a volleyball scholarship, and we'd video chat sometimes, comparing notes on college life and athletic versus artistic pursuits. She asked about my opera career with genuine interest. I asked about her volleyball games with, well, not genuine interest, but at least sincere effort. I'm sorry I never paid attention before, she told me once during her sophomore year. I've been thinking about it a lot. I was so self-absorbed. Everything was always about me and my games and my scholarships. I never once stopped to think about what you were doing or what you needed. You were a kid, I said. I don't blame you for being a kid. But I'm not a kid anymore. And I want to do better. I want to actually be your sister, not just someone you're related to. I'd like that, I said, and was surprised to find I meant it. Mrs. Chen remained my truest family. She came to my graduation from Juilliard. She came to my professional debut at the Metropolitan Opera. She cried at every performance, and I always found her in the audience first. I'm so proud of you, she'd say every time. You did this all by yourself. Not by myself, I'd correct her. You were there. You saw me when no one else did. It was my privilege, she'd say. My career exploded. By 25, I was singing leading roles at major opera houses around the world. La Scala, Covent Garden, the Paris Opera, the Met. My voice was praised as one of the finest of my generation, technically flawless, emotionally devastating, capable of both power and delicacy. Audiences loved me, critics adored me, and I loved singing more than ever because I was finally doing it for the right reasons, not to prove anything to anyone, not for recognition or validation, but simply because I loved it. The true resolution came when I was 27. I was preparing for a major role debut, Violetta in La Traviata at the Met. It's one of the most demanding soprano roles in the repertoire, both vocally and dramatically. The character is a courtesan dying of tuberculosis who falls in love and sacrifices everything for that love. Opening night, I stood backstage preparing to go on when I got a text from Mrs. Chen. Your family is here. Front row. They wouldn't miss this for anything. Break a leg, my dear one. I peeked through the curtain and saw them. Mom, Dad, Madison. But also, and this surprised me, Madison's boyfriend, her college coach who'd made a special trip, even one of her old high school teammates. Who are all those people with your family? My dresser asked. Madison's volleyball people, I said, bemused. They came to watch you? Apparently. After the show, which was a triumph, 5 curtain calls and a standing ovation, Madison found me backstage. Hey, she said. That was incredible. Like, seriously, I cried through the whole second half. Thanks. So I brought some people I wanted you to meet. She gestured to the cluster of volleyball folks standing awkwardly nearby. My coach, my boyfriend, some teammates. I've been telling them about my opera singer sister for months, and they wanted to see you perform. I stared at her. You've been talking about me? To volleyball people? Well, yeah, you're kind of a big deal, Elena. I'm proud of you. I know I wasn't there for a long time. But I'm here now, and I brought reinforcements. She grinned. I figured if I had to sit through years of family members watching my games, you deserved the same energy. Something in my chest cracked open. Not forgiveness exactly, not absolution for all the years of neglect, but a beginning. A tentative bridge between past hurt and future possibility. Thank you, I said quietly. That means a lot. Plus, opera is actually really cool. Like, I didn't expect to be so into it, but wow, you were amazing. Mom and Dad approached more cautiously. Elena, Mom said, every time I watch you sing, I'm reminded of what we almost missed. What we did miss for so many years. Don't, I said. Don't make tonight about guilt. Just be here, be present, that's enough. We are, Dad said. We will be. Always. I wanted to believe them. Part of me, the part that had died at 17 and been reborn with a second chance, was still wary, still protected behind walls built from years of disappointment. But another part of me, the part that had spent the last 7 years proving I didn't need them while secretly wishing I did, that part was willing to try. Okay, I said. Okay. 5 years later, I stood on the stage of La Scala in Milan, singing Mimi once again, this time with the most prestigious opera company in the world. The audience was packed with opera luminaries, celebrities, critics who'd flown in from around the globe. It was the pinnacle of operatic success, the Mount Everest of soprano roles. And in the front row, I saw them. Mom, Dad, Madison, Mrs. Chen, my family. Imperfect, complicated, but there. When I sang Mimi's death scene, I didn't think about my own death in my first life. I didn't think about the years of neglect or the competitions they'd missed or the recitals they'd forgotten. I thought about second chances, about rebirth, about how sometimes we get the opportunity to rewrite our stories, to choose different paths to become who we were always meant to be despite, or perhaps because of, our pain. I thought about how I'd spent my second life hiding my light, protecting myself, building walls, and how those walls had been both necessary and limiting, how they'd save me and trap me in equal measure. I thought about forgiveness, not as absolution for those who hurt you, but as freedom for yourself. And I sang for the girl who'd died invisible and unloved at 17. I sang for the woman who'd been reborn with knowledge and pain and determination. I sang for every person who'd ever felt forgotten, overlooked, undervalued. I sang for the family I'd lost and the family I'd found, and most of all, I sang for myself, for the pure, transcendent joy of creating beauty in a world that had once seemed so dark. The final notes faded. Mimi died in Rodolfo's arms. The conductor held the silence for a long, breathless moment, and then the audience erupted. Backstage afterward, clutching flowers and drowning in congratulations, I found Mrs. Chen first. Thank you, I said, hugging her tight, for everything, for seeing me, for saving me. You saved yourself, dear one, she said. I just gave you a place to practice. My parents approached tentatively, still uncertain of their welcome even after all these years. But I pulled them into the hug too, and Madison, my whole messy, imperfect, trying their best family. I'm glad you came, I said. We'll always come, Mom promised. Always. And here's the thing, I believed her. Not because they'd earned absolute trust, not because all was forgiven and forgotten, but because I'd learned that people can grow, can change, can become better versions of themselves if given the chance, just as I had. They say you can't go home again, that the past is unchangeable, that childhood wounds define us forever. But I'd died and been reborn. I'd lived 2 lifetimes. I'd been forgotten and then seen, invisible and then celebrated. And through it all, I'd learned that we have more power over our stories than we think. That second chances are precious and rare. That the most important voice you'll ever find isn't the one that sings on stage. It's the one that speaks in your heart, telling you what you're worth, what you deserve, who you are. My family forgot my voice recital for Madison's volleyball game. After Rebirth, they never heard me sing again, until I chose to let them. And that choice, that power to grant or withhold, to forgive or protect, to open doors or keep them closed, that was mine. It was always mine. And that was the sweetest revenge of all, discovering that I didn't need revenge. I just needed to become fully, completely, undeniably myself. Everything else followed.